How many of you know somebody who is adopted? Or more importantly, how many of you would consider adopting in the future? According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry website, 120,000 children are adopted in the United States each year. For many reasons, I myself have considered adoption for when I'm ready to start my own family. The choice of adoption is one that is overlooked far too frequently. Today, I'm standing before you to help you see that choosing to adopt is a great decision for many couples wanting to expand their families. Adoption gives a child a forever home. It is an option that is appropriate for any family type, and it is not as expensive or as complicated as people seem to think. For starters, when you choose to adopt a child, you're choosing to give them a permanent and loving home forever. Not only will you love them, but they will love you back just as much. According to the American Adoptions, 9 out of every 10 adoptive couples said that the relationship they have with their adopted child is very close, and half said that the relationship is even better than they expected. Today, 99% of adopted children 5 years and older know that they were adopted and have positive feelings about it because they know that their birth moms chose a better life for them and gave them loving parents. Many children with physical, emotional, and developmental handicaps need a supportive family and a home forever rather than sitting in foster homes, and adoption makes this possible. Now that I've covered how adoption gives a child a forever home, let's talk about what types of families can adopt. Adoption is an option that is great for any family type. No matter the structure of your family, this decision can work for you. Heterosexual couples, gay and lesbian families, blended or multicultural families, the difference does not matter, because any single one of these could become an adoptive family. According to Julie Olson Edwards, author of the book Anti-Bias Education for Children and Ourselves in 2009, adoptive family is defined as any family where one or more children has been adopted. It is also very possible for unmarried couples and single people to adopt, although for them it is much more difficult than it is for married couples. Nearly 40% of American adults have considered adopting a child according to the National Adoption Attitudes Survey. If only a percentage of those adults actually went through with it, there would be more children every year creating loving adoptive families. Here are some images of different families who have adopted. Knowing now that adoption is suitable for any family structure, let's go over the process of adopting and the expenses involved. To start, there are 3 different types of adoption: closed adoption, open adoption, and semi-open adoption. Here's a chart that explains the differences. Open adoption is contact with the adoptive parents and children through letters, photos, emails, calls, in-person visits, etc. Semi-open adoption, some contact with the adoptive parents and or child via letters and photos, but usually not calls or visits. And closed adoption, which is the least common, is no contact with the child or the adoptive parents. Your child may or may not know who you are or your story. It is the agency's job to help you figure out which form of adoption will work best for your unique situation, so it's important to choose an agency that exceeds in this if you are struggling or overwhelmed. According to God's Children Adoption Agency, the adoption process involves selecting an agency, the home study process, submission of the paperwork and the referral of a child, the arrival of the child, and the post-placement process. The cost of adopting is probably the number one concern most couples have. The truth is, there are endless factors that determine how much it will cost in the end, but according to American Adoptions Agency, the average cost for an adoption in 2014 was $30,000 to $40,000. Fortunately, there are several financial resources available for adoptive parents, including adoption loans and grants, federal adoption tax credit, employer-provided adoption benefits, and American healthcare lending. All of these help to make it possible for the family to finance an adoption successfully. As you can see, the process doesn't have to be as overwhelming as most couples think it has to be. Once again, the option to adopt is one that is ignored far too often. I've now explained how the decision to adopt gives a child a forever home, how it's appropriate for any family type, and the process and cost of this decision. Now that you know more about adoption, I hope that if you're planning to start or expand your family in the future, that you will deeply consider this option.